Hello, everyone. Welcome to Let Care Speak. I'm your host, Danyata, and today I will be talking with Alison Birks, who is a clinical herbalist, a certified nutrition specialist, a certified grief educator with over 28 years of experience helping people heal through plants, nutrition, and nature-based practices. Now, what I love about Allison's work is that she doesn't just treat symptoms, she heals the whole person. She started her journey as an herbalist at just 13 years old, inspired by her own health challenges, and she carries forward the legacy of her great great grandmother Zoe, a renowned Canadian herbal healer and midwife. Allison, thank you so much and welcome to Let Care Speak.
So much, Danyata. It's so great to be here. I'm so pleased to be able to share this with you. And I love what you're doing with letting other voices in healthcare speak. And we're in the midst of such a crisis in our healthcare system right now, and we need everyone on board to try to help people find other ways to take care of themselves because we're not going to be getting it through the medical system. So I'm so glad you're doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So tell me, Allison, where are you joining us from today?
So I'm in Connecticut. I'm in Western Connecticut in Litchfield County,
Okay.
and I work through telehealth or through a remote practice. So my clients are from all over the country, and I even have had a couple of clients from Canada. So I guess you could say I'm international.
I love it. Now, I'm currently in Baltimore and it's actually snowing here. So
Oh,
I'm trying to wrap my head around how yesterday we were just in the 80s and now it's snowing. That is
yeah, it's
unreal.
pretty cold where I am. It's in the late four, it's like 40. I'd say it's like 40. And it's drizzling gray and looking more like winter. But yeah, yesterday was wonderful. And there were lots of frogs were out, and they yesterday was a big night for a lot of the creatures that are coming out with the warmer weather. So it's exciting. Spring is on its way.
Yes, it is. So before we dive into your work, Allison, I'm just curious about that moment when you were 13 when you discovered herbalism. What exactly was happening in your life that led you to plants?
Oh, well, I was going through a really, really difficult time, a really dark time. And as many adolescents go through difficulties trying to find themselves, trying to find who they are, identity issues. And it was a dark place, and I was dealing with a lot of depression and a lot of sadness. And, I had this moment, almost an epiphany or a revelation, because I was having some health issues also. And looking for another way to take care of myself. And my mom had a really good library of all these holistic health books because she used to be interested in that. And I started looking through them, and all of a sudden something clicked. It's just something clicked in me that said, "Oh my God, this is it. This is it for you. This is what you are going to do." And I started having all these dreams. And then I found out about my great great grandmother, and my family was very supportive at the time. It's in our family, and your great grandmother was a healer, and your great great grandmother was a midwife. And so it seemed like it was something that was calling to me. Spirit was just calling to me to say, there's something for you to do in this life. And I just had my birthday, and it's like all these years I've been teaching and helping people with herbs and spreading the word about how nature heals and how plants heal. And I feel like when I was first doing it, there was no one doing it. There were a few teachers out there, and they were hard to find. And I didn't have a lot of money to travel or anything. So I didn't really know that much about what was out there. I just knew that it made sense to me. It just intuitively made sense that nature heals, that plants are magical. I always loved plants. I always loved nature. So yeah, something just clicked, and then I just started getting all these, I guess you call them downloads, or like there was just
Hmm.
like dreams and kind of these deep moments of understanding, and a lot of things that I thought. I would read books and I would evaluate what I was reading, and I would think, this seems right or this doesn't seem right. And I kind of had an intuition about what would work and what wouldn't. And many, many years later, when I did some of my training with David Winston, and he really verified a lot of the things that I intuitively knew were correct and really worked. And it was like, here was this master teacher telling me the same thing. So it was like, whatever was or whoever was guiding me back then, it was certainly good information that just stuck with me, all my life. It stayed with me. So
Mm, that is absolutely amazing. And first, I want to wish you a happy belated birthday.
thank
And
you.
yes, you're welcome. And I know that your great great grandmother is smiling at you and all of the work that you're doing and all of the lives that you are healing. That is so beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, she came from a very interesting, very Catholic, very religious background. And also my great grandmother was a healer and she did laying on hands healing. And so just kind of part of who I am. And I have always been a seeker. I've always been someone who reads and explores and tries different ways to connect with the ultimate creator. And I've gone through various different iterations in my life of different religious beliefs, spiritual beliefs, but I've always come back to nature. It's always been sort of a grounding force for me. It's a place where I find my connection to spirit. And there's so many ways you can connect to the earth, regardless of what your religious background is. We all come from the earth. We're all part of the earth. She's our mother. So I always try to tell people that we're not separate from the earth. We're part of it. And we need to remember that.
Mm. I think that actually ties into what I wanted to ask you next. Veriditas, the concept about the vital force of life, and also how herbalism with nature is, you see that more as a medicine of the people. And so I would like to know, Allison, with that, why, as far as herbalism being a medicine of the people, should be more accessible than the pharmaceuticals. Why is that accessibility so important to you?
Those are good questions. So, veriditas is a concept that was developed by a woman named Hildegard of Bingen, and she was a mystic, a Christian mystic. I believe she was from the 13th or 14th century. I'm not exactly sure the time period. But she had mystical visions and she was also a polymath. She was a musician, an artist, and lived a really interesting life. But plants spoke to her in a deep way, and she believed in this sort of greening power or healing power of nature. And I connect with that idea, and she's one of my heroes because I do feel that deep within myself. And in terms of, herbalism has always been the people's medicine. It's the first medicine we ever had on this planet. We probably learned it from animals, from observing them, and then through trial and error of what was good to eat and what wasn't. And people developed an intuitive understanding of what things would help them feel better when they weren't feeling good. And all that information was transmitted through generations. And so now we have this body of knowledge, of traditional knowledge, both in traditional medicine systems like Ayurvedic medicine and traditional Chinese medicine and some of the Native American medicine systems and African American medicine systems. I always think that prevention is where we should be going. Before getting sick, we should be focusing on our diet. And I see herbs and nutrition as interconnected because they're food. And so if we can prevent illness before it starts, then we don't need doctors. Then we need people in the kitchen. We need people making good, healthy food and adding the herbs into the broths and the soups and making teas that we can drink on a daily basis. That's where herbs really shine, is prevention. We have in the last 4,000 or 5,000 years had various practitioners that were the healer that you would go to if you were sick. But that was, some cultures you wouldn't even pay them unless you were well. So you pay them to stay well. It's the opposite of what we have today. And I think a return to eating healthy and using plants for minor things, like learning how to use plants if you have a cold instead of reaching for cold medicine, learning how to work with symptoms instead of covering them up. So a lot of times what we do is we cover up symptoms, we stop them up, and then we carry on and go back to work instead of resting and taking care of ourselves and taking some downtime so our bodies can be stronger. I think that my hope is in the future we're going to have two schools of herbalism. There's going to be people who just know about herbs because it's just part of our day-to-day lives. It'll just become part of our culture again. Everybody will know things like get some elderberry syrup if you're feeling like you're coming down with the flu, or make some chamomile tea if you want to help your child go to sleep. That'll just be part of our lives, and it won't be strange anymore. It'll just be, everyone will just know it again. And then there'll be people that are maybe specialists in really difficult, hard to treat stuff. Someone more like myself who's just trained in a higher level of understanding. But as a culture, we're not trained in how to take care of ourselves for minor things. We're so dependent on the expert to run to the doctor or every time your child has a fever, or, not knowing how to handle conditions at home. I think we need to relearn how to be self-sufficient, how to handle things in our own lives so that it's commonplace knowledge. And we all have little gardens, and we all have places where we can get our herbs, make our medicines, and call up our sister or our mom and say, hey, I got this, I'm going to bring this over for you, help you to feel better. And that's just going to be the way we live. So that's my hope. My hope is that we don't need such a strong reliance on the medical system as we are right now, because people lost that understanding of what is health and how to treat minor things, and we need to regain that. So I think that's what I mean by people's medicine.
I too hope with this outreach with Let Care Speak that people will start to navigate towards that prevention and utilizing herbs, because earth is abundance, and I agree with you. And yes, we return back to the earth and what she provides. So I actually would like to learn more about what your practice looks like. So when someone comes to you, or if someone calls you and you've had a consultation with them, what is your process and what surprises people about your approach?
So my process is I usually start with a 10-minute meet and greet to see if we're a good fit. And it's free. So if anyone wants to work with me, all they have to do is email me or go through my website and fill out a little form. And then we set up a time to talk. And honestly, I don't work with everyone. There are people that I just don't feel I can help because they're either resistant or they're dealing with something much bigger than I'm trained in. So sometimes I will just refer them out to someone I think is more capable than myself. If we seem to have a common understanding and I feel comfortable and they feel comfortable, then we'll set up a visit. I have them fill out some initial paperwork. So there's a health form they complete. I have to look at all of their vitamins, supplements, any medications that they're taking. I get a whole list of those. I have them do a 3-day diet journal. So I look at what they're eating and drinking, everything they put in their mouth for 3 days. And then when I see them, and labs, sometimes they have recent medical labs. So I have them get me copies of their labs. And when we work together, I do a very detailed interview. So I will just, go through the paperwork, and then I'll ask a lot of questions. And some of the questions that I ask are just symptom related, or I might ask, one of the questions I always ask is, when was the last time you felt well? Or when did you start feeling unwell? Was there a moment? Was there something happening in your life when this first started to appear? A lot of times there is a connection between an emotional upheaval or a big change in life and the beginning of symptoms. And so I do like to just try to see what was happening in that person's life that then they started feeling ill. And one of the focuses of my practice is grief education, and I'm a grief educator, and I find that having loss or grief often is just like the tipping point where someone starts to feel sick. There can be other types of things too, but the loss could be anything. It could be the loss of a home, a relationship that you valued, a job. Someone has cancer, chemotherapy, and loses their hair. That's a loss. Any kind of loss can lead to like a dysregulation in the person. And then that also, whatever weak areas of your body, the parts of your body that are the weakest, are usually affected. So someone whose digestive function has always been a little off, maybe, but nothing really serious, and then they go through a very difficult time, sometimes will develop a full-blown GI condition. So I see these patterns a lot. So that might be part of the thing that's surprising to people is that I am a nutritionist. So I do go through all the regular questions a nutritionist would ask you, and I'll look at like what you're eating and assess you for deficiencies, and maybe you'd be on a better diet than or a different diet than you're on. But I also look at the emotional component, the mind body component. So that's probably the most surprising thing, I think, for people is that I do really try to do like a whole person approach. It's not just about calories or meal planning. It's really I consider myself just a person who likes to really listen deeply and try to see patterns or see outside of the box, give ideas, maybe something that was missed. I'm a good problem solver that way too. So a lot of times someone will just not have gotten enough good care. They didn't get enough of the right testing done. And there are functional medicine tests that are out there that nutritionists can order, and some integrative doctors or naturopaths also work with that can look deeper into the body. So there's food sensitivity testing, which I use a lot in my practice, or could look at what's going on in your GI tract. Is there a good balance of bacteria there, or do you have bacteria that are unfavorable to your health? So there's just a lot of different ways to look at the body. I try to incorporate my whole toolbox, and I have a big toolbox of stuff. And so whoever the person is, I've got something in that toolbox usually that we can work with.
I love it. All encompassing, holistic care. And we need more of you out there. Tell me, what's your vision for the next chapter of your work? And is there a calling or what is something that's calling you to explore?
Oh, that's a good question. Something that's been always been on my mind that I've always thought about is at some point maybe creating a not-for-profit. And actually, right now, I've been working with the Bridgewater Land Trust, and that's a not-for-profit in my area, and learning some skills there, and really enjoying that as a little part-time job. That's an idea I have. Maybe learning more about not-for-profits, maybe learning what could I do as an herbalist and would use my skills in that direction. That may be something. And the other thing that's really totally unrelated, but is a new part of my life, is that I just started watercolor painting. So I spent some time as a child doing art, and I always loved doing art and drawing, painting as a kid. Life gets in the way and you kind of put it down. But recently, in the last few months, I just started up again and I'm loving it. And that's making me really happy. So uh, at some point, maybe we'll focus on doing some botanical art. Right now, I'm working on landscapes, but that's something that I think will be part of my next chapter too.
Ah, that's beautiful. And I know your inner child is so happy.
My inner child is so happy about that, for sure. I also have a book in the works. It's pretty much done, and it's about my approach to grief. So, that's another project I'm working on, and it's all about the things I've learned and what I use in my own life and in my practice to help people with grief using plants and all of the things that I like to recommend to people. So hopefully that will get published in the next couple of years. That's another project I want to get done.
Oh, well, I know that'll be a successful journey. And keep me posted about it because I will definitely purchase that.
All right, thanks. I will.
Oh, and so, Allison, for our audience interested in herbalism, nutrition, grief support, or just learning more about your work, how can they connect with you?
So the easiest way is to either go to my website, which is alisonbirks.com, and that's ALISONBIRKS.com, or my email is alison.birks@gmail.com. And you can reach out to me directly, and we'll get back to you.
Um, Thank you, Allison, so much for sharing your story and your work with us today. And I just want to add one of my takeaways from this is just how you brought together decades of clinical experience with plant wisdom, spirituality, and compassion to help people heal in a way that honors their whole self, body, mind, and spirit. And so, for anyone out here listening who may be struggling with health or simply searching for a deeper connection to healing, Allison's work reminds us that healing is something we participate in, and it's a relationship between us and nature and our own inner wisdom. And I'm going to repeat Allison's information so you can learn more about her and her work at AlisonBirks.com. That's ALISONBIRKS.com. And you can also email her at allison.burks@gmail.com. And she will get back to you. And Allison, thank you so much for joining us. And to our listeners, thank you so much for spending this time with us on Let Care Speak, where we explore the people and ideas shaping more compassionate healthcare experience. And remember, better clarity leads to better understanding. See you next time.